Peter, from where you sit, do you think the mining industry as a whole is doing enough? I mean, Darren mentioned that, there are a lot of sort of big goals set, some more ambitious than others. From where you sit, how do you see that sort of playing out?
Reflecting even on the conversation, Pat here talks about investment, and I think that's the way that that it is an investment rather than necessarily a cost, but obviously people are looking at it. I think from the point of view you mentioned ESG, I think those principles have been so ingrained in mining. I can remember years ago when I started CSIRO I think I said this in our pre-briefing up to the Northern Territory. I remember Mitch Hook saying it was an MCA talking about laggards and that, you'll only be known by the worst performer. And so I think, the way that we're seeing, and also from Darren's point of view, the innovation that's going in. And so it's not a straight line, it is tough. But I think really it's almost like an expected norm that, this is the way forward and that it does make good business sense across, and for attracting workers. When I used to run the Master of Sustainable Energy at UQ, that was growing exponentially from people all around the world in all different walks of life wanting to transition and get into this new industry. And so I think there's a really nice sort of crossover, but obviously it's still challenging and there is an investment required. So I think, when we looked at the Decarb WA and we had people from across Western Australia and all different industry, there is also a need for some alternative financing like you're offering, I think, to think about what are those models that help get people over the humps. And, even seeing the Electric Mine Consortium, the collaborations that were coming out of that to test and trial, I think that's where we're seeing some of the walls being broken down where before people would have seen it as competition, but now they're seeing as opportunity. So it's not perfect, but also there are sort of some sticks in there in place as well to push things on. So I think, it is the way forward. Yeah.
And just on financing, obviously, you guys, Bellevue, set that goal to build a net zero mine. Did that help with funding the capital costs in any way?
Like all of the extra assistance that we got in building the mine because of the green goals that we had. I actually have it on me right now. It's in my pocket. There it is. So look, we didn't get any extra finance. We didn't get any. We didn't qualify for any of the the green loans or the ARENA funding or anything because essentially they were available for new technologies, but they're not available for better utilisation of existing technologies. So. The hybrid power station that did get the extra funding was the one down at Agnew, which you can stand at Bellevue and look down the road and see it. And because that was a proofing concept that you could do it, the funding available to us was the same as anybody else. So it was something that we had to take on.
And obviously, Samantha, you guys are sort of, still in that financing process. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but what sort of funding options are available to Vulcan, given the, net zero credentials of your project?
Yeah, so I mean, it's expensive to build a big lithium project in Europe, to build any project. And we're building something for the first time. This will be the first project of its kind in the world. This is just our phase 1 project, so we're funding that at the moment. It's the sort of project you can replicate again and again. So we do have future phases planned. And look, there's probably these resources in other places around the world. And we think, we're actually changing, the way that we can produce lithium with this project. But yeah, it does cost a lot of money to invest in this project. And I've come from big mining companies that generally had their own capital, and whilst there's still a process for that and you have to compete for that within the business, I'm sure many people know what that's like. Certainly the green credentials help, but we don't have a Bank of BHP or Bank of Rio Tinto at Vulcan. We don't have any banks, so we're relying on external banks to fund that project. But certainly the green credentials of the project, not just because we are contributing to climate action through producing lithium, producing geothermal energy, but generally the green credentials of our project as well in terms of no tailings, no waste, very, very low impact carbon, water, land disturbance has made it extremely attractive for investors. So it's not easy to get this money. We not only have to go through a lot of due diligence technically, because this is a newish project, and the lenders want to know that the project's actually going to work. But there's a lot of social and environmental due diligence, which basically I stepped straight into when I started the job a year ago. And there's a lot that has to be delivered to prove that you don't just kind of get this lending. But the credentials of our project were so good that we realised that it would benefit us to create a green financing framework, which is actually a document that we produced. We had to meet certain criteria to be able to produce that document, and then it needed to be externally verified by a third party with a second party opinion, it's called, and that was done by S&P Global. And I'm very pleased to let you all know that we are the first mining company in the world to ever achieve their highest rating, which was a dark green rating. They use green shades of green, but we achieved a dark green rating overall and for multiple categories. So this is, of course, very attractive to investors because, how do you really know a project's green? So these are the sort of frameworks that help validate what you're saying, because that was, rigorously checked and verified. So yeah, it's definitely helped us. But again, you cannot be saying that so we qualified because we are contributing significantly to climate change, but you have to prove that you're not causing impact in other areas. You can't be, wow, we're low carbon, but you're using heaps of water, or you're impacting communities and displacing communities and things like that. So yes, it takes a lot of work, but we've definitely achieved it.
There's been a lot of debate in the past few years about green premiums. Bellevue's second exciting announcement at Diggers and Dealers last week was that you've actually sold green gold at a premium. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so look, this was something that we always thought we'd be able to achieve over time, and I think the focus first was on actually building it as a product and showing that decarbonisation journey. And we started working with the ABC refinery, so out of Sydney, where we sell our gold through. And those guys have a really good understanding of the gold market and who's interested, and a lot of their customers are jewelers and investors and bullion banks and that type of thing. And our goal was, we produce, the number is 0.17% of the world's gold. And the question we had was, can we find a customer that is willing to pay a premium for, that small amount, not the whole amount. And so, yeah, look, pleasingly, we have actually sold tranches of gold already this year at a premium. This was pre-net zero as well, just based on the positive ESG and the pathway to net zero. So now that we are net zero, we're working with, through ABC and with a company, a very interesting company out of the UK called SMO Gold, which stands for Single Mine Origin. So SMO has 4 companies which contribute to it. 3 of them are in Africa, and they're touted as, pro community development. So, they go to customers and say, this gold bar comes from this mine that, builds hospitals in communities, builds schools, and has a very positive social impact. We were the first customer that came on board with them that has positive, emissions around it, and that pathway to net zero. And so we've managed to sell to some jewelers over in Europe. I haven't got my invite to Paris Fashion Week yet, but apparently there's some Bellevue gold that's going to be on there.
That's surprising, given you're such a style master.
I know, mate. I know. Now, believe it or not, Pat, but
definitely I'm never getting an invite.
I was quoted in the AFR recently, and it wasn't in the business section like usual. It was actually in the fashion section,
there you go,
talking about net zero gold. So there you go. I think what's actually opening up and what's been surprising is that there's actually some customers in Europe that are buying bullion, so investment bullion, with the ESG focus on it and paying a premium for that as well. So, we're starting to see, the first part of it. I guess it's part of the the value of being a first mover in the space. And we see a lot of opportunity going forward to continue to work on it, continue to see where it takes us, and
Paris.
hopefully it's on a on a runway in Paris, on a red carpet on someone famous, or
a good site visit.
or somewhere else.
Gold shorts and vests, maybe.
As I said, I'm happy here in Western Australia, the best state in Australia, the best place in the world.
Samantha, have you guys had, I know again it's early for you, but have you had any indications that you may be able to sell your product at a premium?
Tough question with the current state of the lithium industry, but look, I think it's coming. I don't know that we're quite there yet, but the value is not only measured in a premium. For us, certainly being able to place our product in the market where we want to place it and work with customers, that high quality and kind of sit in that more, kind of well-known brands and things like that is helpful. And we're fully sold out of our lithium for our phase 1 project. So even though we haven't even constructed the project yet, we've already sold all our lithium, and that is because our customers, which includes Stellantis, Volkswagen, Umicore, they're not only looking for price and quality, they're really looking at the sustainability credentials. And I sit in those meetings, I meet the teams, I have a direct relationship with those companies and talk to them often about how we're performing, what are our credentials, how much water do we use, how much carbon, and what's our management systems for managing our environmental and social risks. So you can really see that, for us, that really opens up the market. So I think it helps you sell your product. It's definitely attractive, and really the customers are, I guess, voting with their feet and going to suppliers that are more sustainable when they can.
I'm conscious of not eating into audience question time, but I just thought I'd get a final word from Peter. Obviously, a lot of your research that you've done has been on attitudes to energy and decarbonisation, climate change. Do you think we're moving in the right direction?
With the attitudes or with the...
Both, I guess.
Okay.
Attitudes, that was what I meant.
I would say, yes, I started researching public attitudes when I was at CSIRO a long, long time ago. There's always been people concerned about moving this forward, and there's always a group of skeptics, that's there. I actually think the concerns have increased as we've seen more severe weather impacts and so forth, that there is genuinely in community, and I think we're seeing how that plays out with all of these different parts. The early reference to this need for political leadership, I think, we so need in Australia, because it's interesting when you look at what's happened in UK and Europe, countries that are referenced or areas, they had really strong leadership for a long, long time in this space, and it's not really debated. We're still having some of this craziness go on, which is not helpful. I was at the World Hydrogen Conference, I don't know, it was 2 months ago, maybe, I can't remember now, but the Minister for Uruguay talked about the fact that they have achieved 99% plus renewable energy in their whole country. He said it happened because we took energy out of the parliament and set up a separate individual. It still had 3 political parties oversighting it, but it sat outside. And his words were, as soon as we did that, people trusted us to make the right decisions. And I think this is what's holding us back from the point of view of pushing it forward. We need strong leadership. And, the things like the capacity investment scheme, which is really trying to accelerate what's happening in New South Wales with all of those things, we are seeing that, but it keeps getting upended because of these silly, smaller debates around what has to happen. And I think that's not helpful. And I guess the quicker we can move that forward, then we'll start to see we've witnessed the Conservative debates play out quite recently in different places, and I think it's not helpful, because with the broader public, what I find, even we wrote the Solar Energy Saving Handbook many, many years ago, and I can remember someone who was actually an editor of a paper in central Queensland, And his words were, Peter, look, we care about this. We trust CSIRO. Can't you just tell us what we have to do? So I think there's an element that the broader public are concerned, but this is why we vote. This is why we expect these things to move forward. But of course, they're impacted through price, whether it is increasing insurance premiums or costs of electricity and things. And so we have to have much more honest conversations about what the transition means. But as we say, the investment to not delay is far better than what was going to happen if we're having to adapt and build up our resilience more. That's my feeling. That's what I observed through lots of CSIRO surveys and all of these. Yeah.